All right, thanks everyone for coming to this general study abroad information session. My name is Lisa Johnson and I'm the Associate Dean for International Study here at Smith. And I'm joined here by my very esteemed colleague Angelo Pistano, and I'm going to pass the baton over to him as he's going to be talking to you about how to get ready for study abroad. Angelo.
Yes. Hi, everyone. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Angelo. I am our newest team member here in the study abroad office, and I'm a coordinator. So
if you're taking a next semester, then I'm definitely taking linear algebra.
Background
exactly.
I just asked everybody who's on the call if you can.
I tell you what, game theory simple as no outside commitment.
Thanks.
Okay.
So yeah, as mentioned, we're both here to help you out with your plans to study abroad. And so what we're going to be doing is walking through the materials. And just to start out, it is a lot. I want to ask if the presentation looks clear on your end. We need to get back to the starting page. Does everybody see Study Abroad 101 on the screen? All right. So yeah, there's a lot of information here. And of course, that's why you showed up. But I want to be clear that, what we're talking about today is not just the idea of stretching your comfort zone in the cliche sense of when you're actually overseas on your program. But what we're talking about as well is the fact that you're probably going to leave this session with potentially more questions than you have right now. And that's okay. One thing you'll hear from Lisa and I often, and that we'll talk about today, is that it's a process. Study abroad and the experience of being on the program and the experience of selecting your program and applying is a process. And so we invite you to be a part of that with us and know that you have all of the answers. So just to cover a couple of quick facts about study abroad, at Smith, we have over 100 programs which have been approved, and you can choose to apply for any of those programs in 50 countries. They're really a broad range, and those which are not approved, you can also petition to apply for as well. There are 4 programs that are hosted and run by Smith. Those are our centers, and we'll talk a little bit more about program types and how that impacts your experience abroad as well in just a moment. We have a wide variety of people studying abroad, including transfer students. There's really nothing stopping sophomores from studying abroad, although typically what we see is juniors spending some portion of their junior year, a semester of the year, or an interterm or summer experience overseas. So with the facts out of the way, the fast facts anyway, I want to talk about the rough outline for the session today. And again, looping back to that idea of what is this information, what is all of this information looking like, and how do you process that? So we'll talk about getting started, moving through to funding, and then ultimately applying for your chosen program. So in terms of getting started, again, the truth is, and this is a hard truth maybe, but the truth is that we might not always have the answer. In terms of researching your program, we have a lot of really good resources available for you, but there won't be many instances in which Lisa or I tell you, here's the program that's right for you. That's really a personal decision that this study abroad worksheet that is being linked in the chat is going to come in really handy for you. And what it does is it helps you kind of think through the program types that we'll talk about, your academic and professional goals, your personal goals. You really want to be thinking about like your personal affinities and kind of what your background to date as a human has brought you to this point. Like, well, why am I thinking about this study abroad experience overall? And in fact, the work that you do with this worksheet could plug right into the application that you end up submitting. For example, in your statement to our office. And yeah, it helps you kind of think as well about where you would like to go. Other tips that you can find from across campus are friends and advisors and alumna or previous alumna of our study abroad programs, that is, and just asking them, being mindful of the requirements that they had to meet and recognizing that your situation might be a little different, and that's okay. So as far as Smith programs abroad, this is just a quick overview. The green dots that you can see centered in basically Europe and Western Europe are our Smith programs abroad. I mentioned 4 at the beginning of the info session. There's a 5th in Spain that works through with another partner institution of ours. So those are the Smith programs abroad, and every white dot that you see, plus some others that are too small to fit on the map, are places that you could see yourself when you're overseas. So with that, I want to transition into talking about program types. So for program types, we have first and foremost, not really in any particular order of priority, let's say, or preference from our side anyway, is the study abroad center model. And these are programs where you're based with the majority of other study abroad students. In fact, they will all be study abroad students that you interact with. Most likely your housing and all of your coursework will be taken in conjunction with those other study abroad students. But at the same time, you're being invited to get that experience of living like, in this example, in Copenhagen, living like a Danish student. And so you will have the opportunity to, as well, like with some programs, to have a host family. And so that just adds to that immersive element as well. Direct enroll programs, you find these across the globe, really, in pretty much all of the locations, all of the destinations where we have programs. There's likely to be a direct enroll situation. Just know that with this program type, you're going to be experiencing a very different campus environment, most likely, than what you're familiar with here at Smith. And by that, I just mean it's large. There are often thousands of other students, in comparison to what you might be used to in a classroom environment and academically speaking here home on campus. In this model, it's a little different, but you actually have access to the entire breadth of their course list, in most cases. And you can see the note there, not just at the University of Auckland is there this situation, but primarily you'll find this program model in the UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and the English-speaking world broadly. And then we have our integrated study abroad center. So this is a little bit of a different spin on the study abroad center model. There will be focused coursework that is available to the students there on program just as study abroad students, but you're also plugged in a sense to the local university. Yeah, and the Kyoto program is a great option as well. Like I mentioned, this is one where you do get that experience to live with the host family. And the last type is field study. So this is a really interesting program model. It has a strong emphasis on one particular area, and the participants on that program all contribute to that theme. It's as much learning inside the classroom as there is outside, and sometimes more outside, based on those field trips and excursions and speakers and the independent research that you have the opportunity to do as an undergraduate as well. In Ecuador, there are options available for English and Spanish language, but other programs may not have any language requirements at all when it comes to field study. The other opportunity that you have to, as far as doing research for selecting your program abroad and finding out, what might be the best fit for you, is the list of approved programs. That's also being dropped into the chat. And yeah, this is useful in case you have heard about a specific program or have heard about the fact that we have programs in particular countries and you wanted to just browse the options available for you. And lastly, again, also being linked in the chat, as far as this early stage of research, a great spot to go and to learn more information is the program search tool from the Study Abroad website. And from there, you can click through to any of the programs that we have listed, including Smith programs abroad, and find out almost everything you need there, including like a link out to that website if it's an external direct enroll program, for example. But if you do have questions about what you're seeing there, that's a great time to email or come in for some advising. Now, as far as thinking about your own story, I mentioned at the beginning, kind of thinking about your own personal story and what's brought you to this point. That's going to be useful to think about when you're researching programs, because it will impact the time that you have overseas. There are places where we send students in the world that have, there's a difference, and there's complexity to the way that they deal with social issues, to do with the intersecting identities that we all bring into the world with us wherever we go. And so, you have to remember those things. And I think that this this tool, again, this is also being linked in the chat, but there's a lot of really great resources on that particular page. And we also have some great video materials of students talking about how their identities had impacted their time abroad. And if you're seeing those things and having additional questions, there's a whole world of information available that we can help steer you towards to grapple with these ideas as you're choosing your program. Okay, so with the getting started stuff out of the way now, let's move into funding. And I'm not going to read everything on the screen here in front of us, but there is an important thing for you to know about the way that funding works at Smith. And so for our Smith programs abroad and for anything on the approved programs list, the way that we operate is something called the homeschool fees. And so you're basically being charged the Smith comprehensive fee, and we're then managing everything on back end. I say everything, but let's put air quotes there, because there are some additional costs that you should be preparing for and planning into your budget. We have worksheets for those types of things as well. And I do think that there's something being linked here as well about the things that are often not included in the comprehensive fee that Smith covers for your time abroad. So that's basically what I just said, summed up in a quick blurb. But yeah, we're taking care of the rest after you've paid your comprehensive fee of tuition and fees to Smith. Also, a good thing to note, there's a lot of resources available internally from Smith departments, and something that you might not know, but if you are already receiving financial aid, you're going to be automatically qualified. There's no application process, but you're automatically being provided the airfare stipend. And how that's calculated basically works to a similar way that Student Financial Services calculates your need level. So that comes over to us, and we're then granting airfare stipends. So that's the fun fact, first and foremost, that you need to know about funding. There's going to be a lot of questions, I'm sure, about digging into specific opportunities to fund your time abroad. And we can absolutely address those in future info sessions, or again, in some one-on-one advising with you all. But as far as applying, the key thing to know is that this is a two-step process, okay? And you have to basically apply once on the Smith side in order to leave the campus, and then in order to actually arrive and make sure that everything goes the way that it's supposed to when you touch down, you also have to apply for acceptance into your program of choice. The application for the Smith side of things is all based online, and it's a really nice walkthrough. The system will give you really the step-by-step process, although the order of things, sometimes you may want to be thinking about, for example, like your plan of study, and again, like a statement or something like that. You may want to be thinking about those things in leading up to your application, basically. So you can actually apply for 2 programs on the website, and you'll be able to give those options. This is my first choice, and this is my second choice program. We review all of those applications at the roughly around the deadline mark of February 22nd, and there are some spring semester programs as well that have their own unique deadlines too. But just be prepared for that deadline well in advance, and thinking about this process in the first few weeks of spring semester is usually a good idea. And we're here for you in that time as well. So that's the Smith side of things. Now, applying to your program, that can be a pretty vastly differing experience for students depending on what they've chosen to do overseas. And so you want to check your program's website for everything that has the latest info on that side. Make sure that you're applying well in advance of their deadlines as well. They may be different than ours. Many are going to be after the Smith deadline, but they could be sooner as well. And so just know that these 2 steps in the application process, they don't necessarily have to go in this order. It's not first Smith and then your program. It could be the other way around. It really just depends. Yeah, and of course, you're going to be watching out for the program requirements on the external side. So whatever your program is that you're applying for. There'll be a lot of questions about this too, but I wanted to cover it briefly in today's session because it's an overview, and some of you might be thinking about the petition process. At Smith, you do have to petition under a couple of different scenarios. The GPA requirement might be something that you have to petition for, or as I mentioned at the top, applying to a program that's not in our approved list. Just because it's not an approved program doesn't mean that Smithies haven't gone on that program before, for example, and that's okay. So you may petition for that, or petitioning to go in 2 different locations for an academic year, one semester in one place and the other in a different place. So for petitioning, you will need to set aside some additional advising time. If any of these criteria meet your situation, then you'll want to set that time up with Lisa to kind of dig into the specifics of your petition process. Declaring a major. So this is another piece of the application process that's important. It's a Smith requirement that you have to have your major declared before you study abroad. The reason being that person, your major advisor, is really going to come in handy in terms of building that plan of study, building goals, and even just like opportunities within the major, opportunities for research or study or internships that you could be thinking about, as add-ons or as things to fold into your experience overseas. And so we've been talking at you now for about 20 or 30 minutes. And so I just wanted to thank you all really for sitting in on the info session. We have now a really good chunk of time, and it looks like the chat's been pretty active. So we're going to turn things over to you for discussion and questions. Lisa, you're muted.
Yeah, Angela, do you want to stop sharing?
Yes.
You can put your questions in the chat or raise your hand. Sarah Ellis, I see your hand raised. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. What if you're thinking about studying abroad more in terms of like interterm or summer? Would this still like February deadline apply to you as well?
For the summer and interterm, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but there really are much fewer requirements from Smith's side for those experiences abroad. And so your deadlines will be basically whatever the program that you've selected.
Yeah, so
Thanks.
just to clarify, there's no approval process for interterm or summer, unlike if you're going for the fall or the spring. So students are free to do what they want, where they want, when they want, how they want. Students can, if they choose to, apply to have the credit they earn while they're abroad apply to their Smith academic record, but again, that's not required either. So as Angela mentioned, the deadline, the one deadline would be the program's application acceptance deadline.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat. Is there funding for programs over the summer or during the J term? Angela, do you want to take that?
Yes, that's a great question. And the answer in brief is yes, there are some opportunities through multiple avenues. I think one good one would be the Smith Student Aid Society. And I'm just learning kind of about what that opportunity entails. But that's a great one. So you should definitely look into that. International education grants, the IEG, that's another opportunity. And the third, and one of our favorites here in the office that we often spend a good amount of time advising on is the Gilman Scholarship. And so for summer and interterm, you'll likely qualify as long as your program meets the Gilman eligibility requirements, but it's something like 14 days, I believe. The program has to be at least 14 days, and you have to be a US passport holder. But if you meet those two things, and you can speak to kind of what the program means to you and how it will impact your education while you're at Smith, the Gilman's a great, and Smithies have had a lot of really good success applying to the Gilman Scholarship in the past.
Angela, there's a question in the chat. Can a student do a semester abroad and then additionally, perhaps at a different time, a summer or interterm program?
Yeah, another good question. Yeah, thanks, Miriam. So for everybody, that's absolutely an option. Yeah, a lot of students do find themselves abroad and then extending into either like a praxis opportunity in the summer to expand their time overseas in that location, or and maybe I'm getting at the gist of the question here, but maybe it's not about extensions, but then choosing to do a semester in 1 year and then like in a future year to do summer or interterm abroad. And that would default back to our earlier answer for Sarah's question. Yes, again, there's no approval process for the summer or interterm programs that you're finding out there. So you're free to do what you want and when you want, where you want to do it. So I hope that helps answer it. Another question just came through. Kuni, thanks for asking. Do you have to get a student visa if you already have dual citizenship in the country you want to study abroad in? Lisa, let me defer to you on that, the dual citizenship and studying abroad, like in your country of second citizenship.
There's another question in the chat. It's about students who are on who receive financial aid from the college. What does the funding process look like? If you study abroad during the semester, or for fall semester, spring semester, or for the full academic year, you pay the Smith tuition, room and board to Smith, and then on your behalf, Smith will cover the tuition, room and board expenses for you to study abroad. that allows you to access your full financial aid package to study abroad, to apply to studying abroad. Okay. With that said, and earlier I put the link into the chat about the costs and funding, costs and aid information. There are some out-of-pocket expenses that every student, regardless of their financial aid status, needs to plan for. And so that's what is Smith's responsibility in covering and what the student's responsibility is covering is listed on that webpage. One of the things that Angelo and I can help you with is figuring out how to budget for that. And I'm plopping here into the chat a budgeting worksheet that I encourage students to work with. As I mentioned, because this can tell you, what are your out-of-pocket expenses, what's going to be covered by Smith, what's not going to be covered by Smith. The other thing that is good about this is when do you need certain things, right? So you may need money for a visa fee earlier on than needing your, enough money to cover your personal expenses once you're abroad. So either Angela and I would be happy to meet with any students to help figure out a budget. It doesn't have to be this exact budget worksheet. This is just a template to use to help you identify what are some of the things that you need to be planning for in terms of expenses of study abroad and who's covering what and when. With that said, and this question comes up often. So if students are studying abroad during the summer or during the interterm in January, the homeschool fee policy does not apply. So for summer and for January, students are fully responsible for all program expenses and costs. And it's for that reason that Angelo mentioned that there are funding opportunities that students can apply for to help offset those costs. And the International Experience Grant, the Smith Students Aid Society, depending on the program, your program might have scholarship opportunities as well. And then for students who have US passports, you can apply for a Gilman Scholarship, which is an outside scholarship. Here's one of the thing to think about, and it again might be useful to use the budget worksheet to figure this out. Some students believe that if they do a summer program or a January program, because it's shorter, it may mean that if there's fewer out-of-pocket expenses that they are responsible for. And that's not always true. I would say that there are lots of semester-long study abroad programs in which a good portion, in some cases even including airfare, is included in the program fee that Smith pays for. So I really encourage students to really kind of crunch the numbers, compare and contrast. If finances for me when I was in undergrad was definitely something that I had to keep in mind and stuff. And I was fully responsible. My mom was like, we'll help you with this and this, but we're not helping you with any extracurricular. So, and study abroad was my extracurricular. So, it's something that's a good life lesson to learn in terms of figuring out how to budget. And it's something, that I feel like everybody should be paying attention to.
Lisa, can you touch on the dual citizenship question as well?
Oh, the dual citizenship question, sorry. If a student has two passports for two different countries, and they're studying in a country that is not their home country, then you will not likely need to apply for a student visa to travel to that country. An example, I have students right now studying abroad in Geneva, and they have a US passport and they also have an Irish passport. And because the Irish passport is an EU passport, the student did not need to apply for a Swiss visa to study abroad in Switzerland. So that's the example that I have. So a lot depends on that. With that said, you can't study abroad at home. That is one of the few study abroad rules and stuff. So.
Yeah, so Cooney, I hope that helps answer your question. It might, having dual citizenship might ease the way for you to study abroad, but you can't study abroad in your country of second citizenship. Salma asks about is housing, are the housing setup and housing deposit the student's own expense? And so again, if it's term time study abroad, that falls under the Smith comprehensive fee. And so we would take care of that on your behalf, whatever those program costs might be. For summer and interterm, the housing would be at your own expense.
Yeah. And I would just add that too. And the question about deposits is an important one and is a good one. And if the housing deposit is considered a prepayment towards the fee for that housing, then Smith will cover it. If the deposit is considered like a security deposit, and you would get your deposit back, then the students are responsible for that, because in theory, you'll get your money back at the end of the semester, assuming that you leave your housing in the same shape that you found it when you first moved in.
Yeah. Maya, your question's a good one. As far as who to talk to about transferring credits and honors distribution, specifically Latin honors distributions, if you decide to take courses abroad. I was just looking at the transfer policy in the catalog this morning, but I am super new, just a reminder. And so again, I'll ask Lisa to step in there.
Sure. So I think Maya, and for everybody who's wondering the same thing, it's a two-part question and a two-part answer. So when you apply to study abroad, part of the materials that you need to submit is a plan of study. And that plan of study will ask you to list the courses you intend to take abroad. And it'll be those courses that will get approved by my office, Angelo and I, and they would also need to be approved by your academic advisor and your department study abroad advisor. So the credits will be approved for transfer in theory, as long as you're choosing courses that fall within the Smith Liberal Arts curriculum. Those same courses that you take while you're abroad and that are pre-approved can count towards Latin honors, but it's the registrar's office that is the entity that determines if a particular course taken abroad can fulfill Latin honors requirements and stuff. So if you have a course that you're looking at, you can send the syllabus for that course to the registrar's office and ask them, you know, is this Irish folklore course, you know, eligible for Latin honors? I'm just pulling something out of the air in terms of an example, but it's the registrars that will say whether or not any course taken abroad can fulfill Latin honors requirements. With that said, unless you're participating on one of the 4 Smith programs. So the 4 Smith programs are Florence, Geneva, Hamburg, and Paris. If you study abroad anywhere else, your credits are considered transfer credits. And therefore, the grades you earn will not be factored into the calculation for Latin honors. Okay, so if you're looking for that, you might consider participating on one of the 4 Smith programs, because those courses and credits and grades are factored into your Smith GPA.
Great, thanks for that. A small programming note too, for those on the info session who might be interested in hearing more about the Smith programs abroad that Lisa just mentioned, Florence, Geneva, Hamburg, and Paris. Those 4 are all having information sessions Monday through Wednesday next week. And if you haven't already, you can request the Zoom links to those from studyabroad@smith.edu. And Claire asked a question about specific people to make advising appointments. That's me. So in the chat, I dropped my link. But yeah, you can find it if you go to the Study Abroad website and then choosing your program, the Study Abroad website and then About Us. There you'll find our photos and appointment scheduler links.
Angelo, can I ask you a huge favor too? My Zoom's acting up. Could you put the link to the news and events page where we have the list of the information sessions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dropping that in now. Okay, are there other questions that anybody hasn't had the chance to ask? No, hearing none. Again, this will be recorded, and I'm going to drop just as a parting shot here, the link to our YouTube channel. So what we'll do, as Lisa mentioned at the top, is record, upload that, and if you missed anything or wanted to go back and review some of the information on the slides, you can find it on the YouTube channel, and that link is right here. We've overloaded you with a lot of info, but we are so happy that you came. And if your questions weren't answered, or if you're thinking about this over the next few days and weeks, and have future questions, definitely book an advising session, stop into the center, review some of the materials in our resource library. And yeah, we can't wait to see you and help out with whatever you've got on your mind.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.